High Point Board of Education to order. Please stand for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Open Public Meetings Act Statement. New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of the Act, the Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted at the Augusta, Branchville, and Sussex post offices, and notice sent to the New Jersey Herald, the Advertiser North, and the clerk of the boroughs of Branchville and Sussex, and the townships of Frankfort, Lafayette, and Wantage. Our mission statement. High Point Regional High School, in partnership with staff, family, and community, is dedicated to the quest for individual excellence. By fostering high standards of achievement, we prepare students to become responsible and productive members of a diverse society. May I ask for roll call?
Mr. Arnold?
Here.
Mr. Concord?
Here.
Mr. Cross is absent. Mr. Dunn?
Here.
Ms. Ireland? She's absent. Mr. Klein?
Here.
Ms. Schuman?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Sedona?
Here.
And Dr. Rick?
Here.
We have one. Correct.
Yes.
A motion will now be made that the High Point Regional High School Board of Education enter executive session to provide an update on legal, personnel and negotiations items which are exempt from the public participation pursuant to New Jersey Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Any discussions held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public when appropriate. Minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session in person and virtually at the conclusion of the executive session. It is not anticipated that any action will be taken. And for the public's benefit, we should be returning from executive session at approximately 7 p.m. May I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now in executive session. Okay. May I have a motion to return to public session?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now back in public session. Next on the agenda was unfinished business, of which we have none. I'm going to ask, however, on the way over here, after you're on the radio, of another tragedy. I believe we're up to 13 students or 14 students and a teacher that passed in a school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, or something, if I have that wrong. Apologies, but just maybe I'm going to ask for a moment of silence. It's unfortunate it happens on the time of our board meeting, but it happens frequently enough that I'm sure it was bound to happen. So, whatever thoughts and prayers our board is able to offer, I think it's appropriate. May I ask for the approval of minutes for the regular meeting session of April 25th, 2022, and the executive session minutes of April 25, 2022. I don't believe there's anything of special note for those, right? So may I have a motion to accept those minutes?
Motion.
Second. Any discussion or comments or corrections on those?
I would just like to say thank you to Glenn for being part of that, and filling the void while
Thank you.
we are transitioning.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is her last.
And I get to go back in my corner.
She doesn't
I'm
leave us,
excited.
she just goes someplace.
Oh, sorry.
Nobody puts Frank in the corner.
Oh, I love it.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Conforth?
Yes.
Mr. Karazin?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dona?
Abstain.
Oh,
I was absent.
that's all right, hon. Ms. Dunn? Okay, we'll go
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Okay, we now have reached our first public comment session of the evening on agenda items only. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, we will open the public comments for agenda items only. At this time, each speaker should state his or her name and address. You will have 3 minutes to address the board, which will be timed by the board president or designee. I guess it will be timed by myself. We will limit this session to no longer than 45 minutes. Please be respectful and mindful that your comments are being recorded. And I believe we have 2 ways of addressing the board. One is in person here. I don't know that I see anybody in attendance from the public. But we also have the ability to address via our email, correct, Mr.
Yes.
Yardley? Comments can be submitted to,
It's virtual board meeting at hpregional.org, but it's on the it's on the YouTube stream if they want.
okay, so it is on the streaming site. The email address to submit your comments.
Thank you, Mr. Yardley.
Yes, having that set up. If you're unable to submit those comments for the first section, we have a second public comment session later on in the evening. We'll just give a minute or 2 to check to see if anything has come through. None, so
No.
no public comments, so I'm going to ask for a motion to close public comments. So moved. And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we proceed to our presentations for the evening. Don't believe we have the student council rep present, so move on to the HPEA. Ms. Carla Mancuso, HPEA president, will update the board on HPEA items.
Good evening. Am I on? Good evening to the board. Did I miss something? Leanne Smith, you're doing something, or?
What?
No, I thought I heard something that somebody was resigning, no? I'm wrong? Okay, I'm sorry. I was back there. No, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'd like to address the board and say, okay, we are counting down to the last days of the school year, and I need not speak for the staff because they have already spoken to their concerns on their evaluations. And if you really want to know, because I can't speak for them personally, to look at their additional comments on their quadrant 4, because that's where they are right now, as far as additional comments. When you do your end of your year evaluations and you need to have additional comments, if you're interested in where the scope of the pulse of the HPA is right now.
Ms. Mancuso, and to just qualify something, the board does not have access to your evaluations. It's not permissible for them to see them. I just wanted to bring that up, make it clear to all present.
I was going to note that myself, that we do not have access, nor should we. I believe this would be an opportunity if there were collective comments or.
Well, that's what they asked me to say to you as a collective bargaining unit, to say, if you want to know how they feel about how this year goes. So if you want a different mechanism, just let me know how that should go.
This is your perfect mechanism.
So they were very concerned as far as how this year has gone, and they understand this is not a normal year. But as far as what normalcy is going to be, they're very concerned as far as how the students are interacting with the teachers and staff, and I'm including maintenance and whatnot. They would like to have a very standard operating procedure as far as how everything is dealt with in far as discipline. So if you have one kid that does something that's against the rules, the other person should be dealt with, and that's not what's happened. And I don't want to have to speak for it. They have specific instances where we have sent kids to the office and things haven't been dealt with accordingly. Because it's like, oh, I just got a candy bar, I just got this, and in the language, in the clothing, it's very disturbing. Because it goes against the teachers now, again. All right, so you're in charge of your classroom, and there's not supposed to be phones out, and then all of a sudden, you have like 5 or 4 kids having phones out. So you go to an administrator and they say, well, it's your classroom, you should be able to take care of it. You can't do it when you're not backed up. So I'm speaking as a collective now, because that's what you want me to do. And they need to know going forward how we're going to deal with this. We're in testing right now, and all the phones have to be in and whatnot. And it's scary because you turn your back and you're teaching, there you are, you're teaching, and all of a sudden you turn around and an administrator walks through and says, well, you should have handled this, or our hat's on, and this and that. You know, it's tough. We've been through a rough go. I give my hats off to the nurses, the doctors, the teachers that have been involved with going through this situation. And if you think this is easy, it's not. And they wanted me to tell you to look at their comments. And if you can't do that, I'll find another way to do it. Because I don't want to speak for all of them. But they said you need to tell them, we're here to teach. And we need standards. You're held by that standard. And that's the way it goes. And then they're concerned about being videotaped and Snapchat. We are on Snapchat and everything else. They're doing, kids are like, you know, here, I'm gonna take it. No, you can't take your picture. You can't take my picture. They're videotaping, they're going to the bathrooms, they're doing whatever they're doing, they're videotaping. And we're all concerned about our safety. So this is a workplace safety consideration. I didn't want to have to bring this up tonight. I wanted you to read their comments, but I understand if that's what you can't do, that's fine. I'll find another avenue. Because they wanted me to say, at least let them address, we can't go through another year of us being video chat, Snapchatted, you know, everybody's walking through the hallways with their cell phones and whatnot. And it's very disturbing. I didn't want to have to bring this up tonight, but that's, if you said you can't read our comments, that's fine.
So I want to make sure I have this clear. So I want to understand that as the representative for HPEA, you're
Yep.
saying that the majority view is that there's an unbalanced application of discipline? Is that summation, is that fair summation of what
Yep.
the HPEA is saying?
Absolutely.
And there is, the videotaping, is that there's a resistance or desire not to be videotaped or videoed by students, by students to faculty? Is that the situation? I wasn't understanding it perfectly,
Okay.
sorry.
We have a usage of phones that go
By
beyond,
students.
yes, by students, that it becomes our responsibility as teachers from the administration that it's our class and we should,
Classroom management.
yes. So you're at the board and you're being taped,
Right now, yes.
yes. So I think the staff, which has come to me, wants to have the policies we looked at as far as who's supposed to be doing to what, to whom, as far as taping in the classroom. Because now we're at the end of the year and everybody's just doing whatever they're doing.
I have it clarified now, thank you.
Otherwise, to, we're in state testing right now for the freshmen. We have science testing going on, and there was enrichment in the auditorium that was going on today. So the rest of us that have been supervising the testing are dealing with what has to be done, and we're looking forward to the finals. So we're all in preparation for the finals and wrapping up the school year. But the staff, the majority of the staff wanted you to know and to look at their, what you can't look at, their additional comments on their, so if you let me know how you want to have that feedback, because I don't want to be biased, I don't want to say all, I don't want to see everyone, but there's concerns. Because when you do your evaluation and there's like any additional comments for the following year, you folks are our bosses.
No, well, Dr. Ripley,
Yes.
right, is aware of what the concerns. I guess I'm just confused because.
No, I've not heard this before. This is the first time I'm hearing this evening as you are.
So the comments aren't the comments on their evaluations come from you, right?
No,
Or is it like comments from the staff members?
Domain 4 is essentially an
Right.
opportunity for self-reflection.
Right.
And what the staff member believes that their own personal growth, or what they believe that they've done well.
Extra above and beyond,
Right.
right?
And so it could theoretically be an opportunity to express oneself with concerns over multiple things, certainly. But I had not heard it.
So maybe I'm misdirecting, and maybe I should be redirecting to Dr. Ripley. Maybe he should look at our domain 4s and maybe to compile some sort of, concerns, because it's been brought to my attention. They can't go, the words of some of the staff, they don't want to go through another year like this.
I don't think anybody does.
Okay, no,
I know what you
I
mean.
have teachers, been here 20 years, that said they never counted down before.
Yeah, I would.
Mr. President, I got a question for you, or maybe it's for Mr. Ripley. Mrs. Smith was mentioning that classroom management. So when I went to back to school night, there were some classrooms that had a thing hanging on the wall where you'd walk in, the students would put the phone in the rack. Is that up to the teacher to do that? Is that their decision to have that rack?
Interesting question you should pose. 2 years ago, I believe, it was based upon stated concerns of the staff regarding cell phones and acknowledged by the administration, led by Mr. Campbell, the director of curriculum. We purchased shoe bag, okay, and it was in conjunction with the staff, agreed upon between the staff collectively and the administration, that both parties were in full agreement that when students entered every classroom, they would place their cell phone in the shoe bag. If they were required or needed during instruction for formative assessment, formative assessment, then they could certainly be utilized. But otherwise, they were to be placed there. The degree to which that's been adhered to is debatable.
But that's up to the teacher in order to enforce that in the classroom?
No, it was agreed upon between the staff as a whole and the administration, communicated thoroughly through multiple meetings, discussions, emails, and face-to-face, whole staff and administration, that everyone was in agreement. Everyone would require every student in every classroom to put it in the shoe holder.
Is that what's in place right now?
Well, theoretically, the degree to which it's adhered to is another matter.
So I'm going to ask one more time. Is it up to the teacher to enforce that in the classroom?
Yes.
Enforcing it.
Okay.
So can I ask, if a teacher takes a phone from a student, or if a student's not complying, like if I take a phone from a student, I go turn it into the assistant principal, I have to email or call the parent and let them know too.
No, but generally speaking, our staff does not email or call the parent to inform them. It is the assistant principal who will do so.
Okay, well, it used to be that way, now they changed it on me, but yeah, and then, so I do that, and yeah, so.
I would like to say that in the world where cell phones are ubiquitous.
Right.
The challenges for
Oh,
educators,
yes, ridiculous.
administration, and
Yeah.
teachers today is profound, and something with which I did not have to contend when I was a classroom teacher, because it had not reached the level to which it has now.
Right.
So I want to acknowledge that, and it is a challenge and very difficult. However, it is the responsibility of the classroom teacher to enforce the adherence to that mutually agreed upon agreement.
Thank you.
I don't want to sound like there were more comments, but I just wanted to tell you, Ms. Mancuso, that obviously the board is able to set policy with recommendations from the superintendent. We're always looking at ways to get better at what we do, make it a better environment for staff and students and everybody in the community. So I guess we'll look into this as much as we can. We won't do things that we are legally not able to do, but certainly communication should be a two-way street on something like this. If we find that there is a need, rest assured, we'll make changes.
I appreciate that, and just to let you know, we are charged to educate. We need the support of you and the administration. It's hard to juggle when your back is turned and you're teaching, and everybody has their cell phones out, and then they're ticked off because they don't have service and they want to go out in the hallway to do their TikTok and whatnot. I do understand that we're charged here as educators first, so that's my main concern. And to have an evaluation that, you know, so-and-so had their cell phone out. Really?
Understood.
It's a concern. Otherwise, on a better note, we appreciate all your support. We're looking forward to getting through the finals. Teachers are very excited that we have finals this year. Our poor kids are going through our New Jersey ELA and math test right now. God bless them. You know, we just gotta test. You know, I'd like to say I'm very proud. I believe I'm the first person in High Point history to represent as a DA, a delegate assembly person, to go to the NEA convention, which is now in Chicago, which is fully paid by NJADA. And I will be able to represent Sussex County and High Point, and I will do you proud. I promise you that. We are dealing with a lot of concerns with social equity and special education and LGBTQI issues, and it's a national platform. So I'm not only going to be involved with local, I'm on the national convention to be able to speak for our county and our school. And I'm very proud of doing that. As far as the teachers are concerned, they just wanted me to let you know they need your support and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't happen to see Mr. Talman in attendance. Sure. I just didn't know if there were was anybody jumping in the breach to update us on his normal athletics items. So we'll wait till the next meeting for Mr. Talaman's report on principal's report in athletics, but then I'll turn it over to Mr. James Campbell.
Did mention something about seating time. I don't know. The first item I want to mention is that about 2 weeks ago, our Performing Arts Department took 77 students to Pennsylvania. They visited colleges, they worked with world-class clinicians, and they competed and performed. That trip was extremely costly. The students fundraised, they saved, they spent their hard-earned money, they paid for their hotel, they paid for their food, and the board supported this endeavor with paying for the buses. It is expensive to provide this type of real-world, on-hand, off-site enrichment. It is building really memories that will last a lifetime. So thank you. They asked Ms. Riccardi Hardy, Mrs. Martin, Mr. Aslani, and Mr. Carroll all asked if I would extend their appreciation to Dr. Ripley and the board because they realize that these are difficult fiscal times. And for these students to have had numerous trips canceled over the last 2 years, it truly is memorable. That great time. It's great to see them out doing those types of things. When a high school takes a trip like this with 77 students, I have to assume that numerous students are staying overnight away from home and away from family, perhaps for the first time, and that really creates, special memories. So on behalf of them and High Point, thank you to our kids. State testing completed day 2 of 5 today. There will be fewer tests next year. I like to believe that we're not anti-test, we're anti an excessive amount of tests. And this year was excessive. But there will be fewer tests, they may be shorter in scope. And thanks to the students and the staff, we are getting through smoothly and seamlessly. For this administration, our seniors are coming in at 9:30, and I have to say there's a common in the building where we don't have teachers teaching the class and then bringing the cover. It's much more manageable, and that creates a climate where students feel less stressed. So it's been very successful. That's our beautiful campus, and that's our beautiful campus on fire. So we waited. Dr. Keinzler is here this evening in the audience. I want to thank the science department. Mr. Drellick worked tirelessly to make this happen, and we waited for.
Is that you in the picture there?
No. We waited for conditions that were doable, and we finally got it. And although the science department, Mr. Drell, had a lot to do with it, the vision and the suggestion and the brainchild was of Ms. Kate Namara. And rather than hear me talk about it, just 90 seconds, if we could hear what she had to say about this great experience.
Environmental science classes, we have a great campus here for outdoors. I like to do a lot of hands-on stuff. And my background is, well, in college I did a lot of field work, a lot of soil ecology research. So I wanted to give the kids that experience and give them the tools for the different methods and procedures that they might be using in college. So we have this plot of land. A lot of larger trees were taken down by Hurricane Sandy years ago. So everything's just kind of sat here for years. So I saw it and I was like, hey, just on a whim in a meeting, expecting to be laughed at, I was just like, hey, can we burn the forest down? And I'm waiting to get laughed at, right? And they're like, well, tell me more. So I wrote a proposal. So what we did in the fall was we came out here and we took a lot of soil samples. We inventoried the density of the different plant species and just took data on everything that was out here. So now after the burn, we're going to come back out, we're going to take more soil samples, assess the nutrient level, look at the species that were established here, and just kind of keep track for the next few years. They have been waiting for this since the fall. We just haven't had the right weather window. So they literally all year, are we burning? They're so invested. I mean, they did their own projects, they did their own research, so they're invested in it. They're really excited about this.
Great job, nice day. Kids loved it, and to be able to have a multi-year longitudinal study on environmental events that happen here is just great for our students. So thank you to the staff, and it's quite a success. Also setting the world on fire is our unified track and field team. I want to thank Ms. Matana and Mrs. Delaney and many other people for their leadership. There's a great spirit to these athletes, and it's a real source of pride to see them out and about. Next year we're going to have a fall program, a winter program, and a spring program. So our unified program is growing, and it's off to a great start. And every year, several rankings come out. U.S. News and World Report is one of the 2 major rankings, and we were ranked the top 25% of public high schools in America, and we were ranked 3rd out of 9 in Sussex County. The relationships that students build with a teacher, the memories that are built on trips, the experience they have doing a hands-on environmental project can't be measured. However, we get measured. There are metrics by which they try and say good and bad. And so we have to value them because it's good for our students, it's good for our schools, it's good for our community to have our school accurately and properly reflected as a strong performance school. So we're proud of that ranking. And it is also interesting that I speak about this tonight because, like it or not, the primary variable used for that metric is standardized assessments. There are others, various aspects of participation and graduation rate, etc. But approximately half is how your students do state testing. And so I made a video for the students that came out and said that. We want to see where your strengths and weaknesses are. We want to see where our school's strengths and weaknesses are. But we also are proud of our school, and we want to accurately show that we're a strong school. So that was a nice bit of recognition. Lastly, we have our top 10 students going off to wonderful colleges, but increasingly, and some people will may roll their eyes, oh, everybody gets a trophy, but we don't really believe that. We truly believe that every student is incredibly special, and what their hopes and dreams are, and what their plans are for next year is equally valuable, and we want to celebrate that. So I want to thank Mr. Palme, who said that this was something we talked about, but this year's senior class student council officers pushed to make it happen. So not just our top 10, but we had a day where we, every student, no matter what school, college, trade school, or career military, it was a day for all of our seniors to wear something with pride and celebrate what their future plans are. And that's who we are, because we are deeply committed to the success of all students, and I think that day was a nice way to really affirm it. So if you want to see more of those photos, just look this up.
You talked about the trip that they took and how important it was, but what you did in the backyard here was just as important. And those kids are they're never going to forget that. And I think we talked about it in committee last year, right? And I joked about that you could spark somebody's interest, no pun intended, right, with doing that into a future career. So out of all those kids, you may have.
You could, and I failed to mention that the county fire marshal who led the entire event was Mr. Chris Frank, who's a high point graduate. And I also, John Dewey is a prominent American educational philosopher, and the idea of learning by doing. So most of us, when we think back in our high school and college years, we remember projects, we remember guest speakers, we remember things that were, well, hands-on, and that were outside the norm, that were really different. So we're trying to create that in the kids. Great.
Approximately how many years is the study expected to?
Probably 4. See how it goes. Dr. Kay, is that about right? 3, 4. How long, for how many years after this will we be able to take samples and glean some type of research?
Yes, so this is a good question. It's not a simple question. By the way, we're very much for HPRHS. So, yes, this will, I would say, the dramatic events of the first 5 years.
Okay.
Great. I would recommend, recommendation.
Absolutely.
It was a quote, small burn, but not really. It was huge, was the first one. It would be nice to repeat this as some sort of periodic interval over years, so you'll be able, one day maybe at High Point, we'll see something 10 years from now, we can say that we burned 10 years ago, we burned 5 years ago, we just burned last year. So the progression is this,
Right.
to me, would be an awesome opportunity to move forward.
Nice. Thank you. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Conclusion of our presentations for the evening. Moving on to other business, I believe we have one item here that the Retirement and Service Recognition Awards are scheduled for Wednesday, June 15th at 12:30. Anyone happen to know where that is at?
Likely to be held in the auditorium. Formerly, it was a luncheon to which the retirees from the past were invited. COVID essentially ended that.
There used to be an offsite.
Nope,
No,
all
this
was
was the one
done
this year?
in
Oh,
the
okay,
cafeteria.
okay. Very good. Let's move on to action items. First up, we have curriculum instruction and technology, Mrs. Smith.
All right, so, just noting, items 1 and 2, and 3, the faculty attendance rate, student attendance rate, and suspension report as attached. I'm going to move items 4 through 7, on their own. So, number 4 is, approve the HIB report for the period as noted. Number 5 is approved curricular field trips as listed on the attachment, and number 6 is approved professional development activities as listed, and number 7 is approve the voter registration law on annual statement of assurance as attached. Making a motion, seeking a second. Any comments, complaints, perhaps? Okay, roll call.
Ready? Mr. Concord?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
I wanted to move 8 by itself, just to, number 8 is approved participation in the pilot program Preventure, sponsored by the Center for Prevention, in which screening and group sessions will be used to identify risk factors. So I wanted to just maybe give an opportunity to explain what that is.
Yeah, the Center for Prevention located in Newton has been expanding their outreach to the community, to the county, and they have created a new program, the pilot program Preventure, which is an attempt to identify at-risk, or at least identify risk factors within the student population, so as to provide them with interventions before they become problematic to the point where, we want to be able to catch kids. We want to respond to interventions that are timely, data-driven, and this is an attempt to do so. It's essentially an expansion of what schools have been trying to do over the last decade. To what extent that's been possible is another thing, but I think this is an exceptional pilot program that is research-based and aligned with things like multi-tiered systems of support to identify and assist at-risk students.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any other comments, questions? Roll call.
Mr. Concord?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
And finally, move 9 and 10 together. Number 9 is approving the 23-24 school calendar. And number 10 is approving the fiscal 2023 elementary and secondary education grant application. So making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any comments? Roll call.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Dona?
Yes.
Mr. Concord?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes. Before we proceed with personnel items, I'm going to ask just for a 5-minute recess, if we may. I don't know if I need a motion for that. Correct. So I'm a 5-minute recess. We'll be back. I'm sorry to spring this on you, Mr. Daniel. I don't know if you have a hold sign or something to put up for recess. We'll be back at 7:50. Okay.
Receive all of our paperwork as listed. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
everybody.
Yes.
I'm glad that, you know, one thing kind of came out of COVID. I hope it's as successful this
Right.
year.
Yeah.
So,
Take the ones where we can get them.
yes, exactly. Anything else?
I just had a question. Was the Silverman Academy and all the extra hours here, was that in the budget?
It is actually grant funded, and
Okay.
so it is. It's something that we did last year to address loss of learning and to essentially provide a learning experience over the summer for kids to either make up what they may have missed or have the opportunity to experience learning in the summer with, I've gone back to dementia.
There's some successful completion of courses, some enrichment, and some social and emotional learning. And it is, as Dr. Berkeley said, fully funded by grant.
Good. Thanks.
It's a great program.
Okay, any further? Roll call, please.
Mr. Conforth?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Donut?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
All right, then I'd like to move number 11. Did I say something?
No, sorry.
Okay, that's good. Approval of the interlocal shared services agreement for nursing services with the Lafayette, Montague, Frankfurt Boards of Education as listed. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Discussion?
I would request that the board postpone this vote indefinitely. Not that that means forever, but there is a little more communication that needs to be done to affirm the agreement between the parties. So I'm requesting a temporary, indefinite postponement.
So how do we go about that?
So I'll make the motion, and if we're not following Robert's rules exactly, we all understand what we're intending here is to postpone the motion until some further information is gathered. We do intend to pick it up at a future board meeting, we just don't know at which meeting. So I'll make that motion, seeking a second.
Second.
I believe I can do all in favor to
Aye.
postpone
Okay.
this motion.
Yeah, there's no point here.
Okay, any opposed to postponing? Seeing none opposed, we will place 11 on a future, item number 11 on a future board meeting agenda.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Okay, and then making a motion to move the approval, number 12, the approval of summer work days for the guidance department child study team as listed below. Days to be coordinated with the supervisor of pupil personnel services. Making a motion, seeking a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Donut?
Yes.
Mr. Conforth?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes. I believe that concludes personnel. Next up is extracurricular. Mr. Arnold.
I'll move items 1 through 3. Number 1 is recommended that the board accept the resignation of Aaron Baker as ski coach immediately. Number 2, it is recommended that the board accept the resignation of John Sikorsky as rehearsal pianist effective June 30th of this year. And item 3, it is recommended that the board approve the extracurricular appointments for the 22-23 school year as listed in attachment C1. Make a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
The ski coach resignation, we're still searching for someone to fill that role, yes?
We are, yes.
Okay.
Anybody else? Roll call, please.
All right. Mr. Conforth?
Yes.
Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Donut?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes. Looks like we have one item under policy. Mr. Donut?
Okay, so moving number 1 for the, or making a motion to move number 1 for the approval to abolish the following policy. Policy 1648.14, safety plan for healthcare setting in school buildings. Seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
temporary legislation or directives that were put in place under COVID. The issues or the directives that were infused into this policy that is up for abolishment are infused into others that you have already approved based upon legislation that has updated that which was formerly in place.
Anything else? Okay, roll call please.
Okay, Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Schuman.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Donut.
Yes.
Mr. Conforth.
Yes.
Mr. Caraza.
Yes.
Mr. Arnold.
Yes.
And Mr. Dunn.
Yes. There are no action items under negotiations, but I will mention that we are currently in negotiations with the HPAA and hope to have that wrapped up very soon and possibly have that on a future agenda in June or shortly thereafter. So buildings and grounds, Mr. Klein.
Thank you. So we're proud to announce that the Eagle Scout who presented here did complete his project, and the shed is in place down between the grass area between the softball field and the senior parking lot. And we're also reporting that Wantage was generous enough to waive the building permit fee and the zoning permit fee. So we're just proud that he was able to do that project, and yeah, he could earn his Eagle Scout badge.
Did you do it pretty much on the schedule that he set
He
too?
was pretty close, right? I mean,
Yeah, I believe the end date was very close.
Yeah.
The work schedule may have been off 1 or 2 days, but the end date conclusion was pretty much what he had anticipated and communicated.
he seemed pretty driven when he was here, so
Yeah, no, that's impressive.
very, very happy that was complete.
Did you make a motion on this or we just?
Yeah, you're gonna make a motion.
We did?
No.
Oh.
You want to make a motion on it?
Well, you
Sure,
just
sure,
have to
we should
second
move it to
it.
second.
Making a motion,
That's all right.
Accept it.
Who seconded? You?
Yes.
Okay, Gail.
I wanted to, in discussion, thank Wantage Township for their generosity and also acknowledge the Eagle Scout. Sorry.
That's okay.
No, say
That's
you
all I
say
have.
a voice vote.
Say roll call.
Oh, roll
No,
call.
voice vote, please, by all in favor.
All in favor?
Aye. There you go.
Okay. That's all I have.
I will handle items in finance. I'd like to move 1 through 5 together. 1 is a recommendation to accept the report of the board secretary and business administrator for April 2022. Item 2 is a recommendation to accept the report of the treasurer for the month of April 2022. And 3 is a recommendation to approve the report of transfers and minimum expense transfer report for the month of April 2022. Item 4 is a recommendation to approve for payment the attached schedule of audited bills dated May 24th, 2022. And item 5 is a recommendation to accept the adult education agency account, athletic account, cafeteria account, principal's petty cash account, scholarship account, school store account, and student activities account for the month of April 2022. I'll make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? None? Roll call vote.
Okay. Mr. Caraza.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Schuman.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Donut.
Yes.
Mr. Conforth.
Yes.
Mr. Arnold.
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. I'll move 6 alone. 6 is a recommendation that the board acknowledges and gratefully accepts a donation of $1,000 for the track team from someone who wishes to remain anonymous. I'll make that motion, seeking a second.
Second.
And discussion. We have this person named Anonymous has been very good to us. I want to thank them, whomever they are.
Not,
Yeah. We are very fortunate to have, generous donors in our midst. So thank you.
If anyone would incline to donate a
Surf
all
field
the
or-
turf athletic field, that would be fabulous.
You can ask, right? Doesn't hurt to ask.
I'm asking.
Begging.
May I have a roll call on that?
Schuman.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Donut.
Yes.
Mr. Conforth.
Yes.
Mr. Caraza.
Yes.
Mr. Arnold.
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. And I will move the remaining items under finance, that's 7 through 11. 11 is found in the addendum. So item 7 is recommendation to authorize execution of the School Food Authority vendor contract, SFA to SFA, with Montague Township School, effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Item 8 is a recommendation to approve the student accident primary insurance renewal proposal between High Point and Bollinger Insurance Specialty Group, effective July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023. Item 9 is a recommendation to approve the student accident secondary excess insurance renewal proposal for the same two members and period. Item 10 is a recommendation the board grant permission to the High Point Wrestling, John Gardner, to host the non-affiliated co-ed camp K through 2 and 3rd and 8th grade, which will run July 18th through to the 21st, 2022, and July 25th through 28th, 2022, as listed. And finally, item 11 is a recommendation that the board approves and authorizes fiscal year 22 to 23 FSMC number 1, the food service management company contract with Mascios Food Services Incorporated for a flat management fee of $22,100 based upon the estimated total cost of the contract of $324,480.29. 29 cents for that cake, like that. As referenced on the projected fiscal year 2022 to 2023 projected operating state. The rest as listed. I'll make the motion on those items. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on, what was that? 7 through 11? Seeing none?
All right. Mr. Conforth.
Yes.
Mr. Caraza.
Yes.
Mr. Klein.
Yes.
Ms. Schuman.
Yes.
Ms. Smith.
Yes.
Mr. Donut.
Yes.
Mr. Arnold.
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes. I will now turn it over to Mr. Caraza to handle transportation action items.
We'll move items 1 through 10 all together. Item 1, recommendation to approve the joint transportation agreement for the current school year as listed. Number 2 is recommended to approve the parental contract for the listed student for the period as listed. Number 3 is recommendation to approve the joint transportation agreement with the student as listed. Number 4 is a recommendation to approve the quoted contract for school-related activities for the remainder of the school year as listed. Number 5 is a recommendation to approve the lowest bid and only bid for a bid for the 22-23 ESY as listed. Number 6, the recommendation to approve contract to the lowest bid and only bid another bid for the 22-23 ESY is listed. Number 7 is a recommendation to approve the contract to the lowest bid and only bid as listed. Number 8, again, is to approve the contract for the 22 extended school year as listed. Number 9 is a recommendation to approve the joint transportation agreement for students in the ESY program as listed. Number 10 is recommendation to approve and authorize the joint transportation agreement for the ESY program as listed. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Other than to thank Ms. June again for getting our kids from point A to point B in tough transportation times.
Could you just explain the host and the joiner, looking at number 10 specifically? Who, we cover the cost of that, or the joiner school covers the costs? Looking at number 10.
They do. I believe.
We do.
10
We do?
10 is the host,
We do.
and they
As the host.
Right.
pay up.
Right. This is an example of how we June Williams provides the service for which we charge a nominal fee to host routes such as this, and this is an example of one of those. So we do all the work to set up the routes and all the work relative to it, and they're the joiner, and they pay the cost of the transportation, and we charge a nominal fee to provide that service.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
All right. Mr. Caraza?
Yes.
Mr. Klein?
Yes.
Ms. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Vick?
Yes.
Mr. Jonah?
Yes.
Mr. Conforth?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes. We have no legal items under action items. So next on our agenda is the correspondence. I believe we are acknowledging receipt of 2 resolutions that were forwarded to us from Frankfurt Township that were, I believe, distributed to board members. I was going to leave it at that. I will mention that one of the resolutions is actually the Sussex County Board of Commissioners resolution that was forwarded through Frankfurt Township, and one of them is Frankfurt Township's resolution themselves. I was going, like I said, going to leave it at just mentioning it, but if everybody wants an opportunity to talk about them, I may. So I want to thank Frankfurt for making us aware of these resolutions. If anybody in the public is interested, they can certainly go to the Sussex County Commissioner's site and find out the content of the resolution from the Sussex County Board of Commissioners, and probably from the Frankfurt Township to find out what was in the Frankfurt Township resolution. I want to thank them for suggesting how we should run our school board here. I will tell you the kind of things that keep me up at night are not what was necessarily in those resolutions. And I mentioned earlier on in the evening that today was a shooting, school shooting in Texas, which happens to be the 26th of 2022. That's the kind of things that keep me up at night as a school board member. We just emerged from a pandemic and all of the issues that I don't need to go into detail, we all experienced, but we all understand that there was learning loss as a result of that. I think the estimate somewhere that I read was that every student was set back something like 6 months, probably beyond that in the roughly 2 years that schools were either shuttered or reduced. You know, learning loss is an important topic. That's number 2 on my list of things that keep me up at night. In no specific order, the state aid cuts keep me up at night. The fact that we, as a school, have lost now many millions of dollars. I don't happen to remember the exact figure. I know it was 3.1 over the course of the past few years, and we are expected to continue that. And those are the things, you know, the boards of ed have to struggle with, particularly in our neighborhood of the state. I believe it was the majority of Sussex County schools that have been affected, and some more than High Point. God bless them, I don't know how they deal with those things. I'm sure that's the kind of things that keep them up at night, and the kind of things that we struggle here with. We had a resolution at one point in time, roughly a year ago, that we passed along to our sending district municipalities and beyond, asking for some assistance dealing with the state aid cuts in Trenton or wherever they can influence things for us and for the other schools in the county. But we get suggested that we take a look at a couple other resolutions that, one is called the Parent School Bill of Rights, ostensibly, and the other one, just basically they deal with sexual education, curriculum, and things like that. And I'm not demeaning the parents that think those things are important. I'm really not. I'm just saying, perhaps let's look at some prioritization about things that school boards really feel keep them up at night, like school shootings, learning loss due to the pandemic, and state aid cuts. I'll get off my soapbox.
Thank you.
That's the end of correspondence. Miscellaneous, our standing item about school board mandated training. I don't think there's anything to comment there. I believe we're up to date as far as we know. So I will entertain a motion to open for public comments, our second session of the evening. Same rules apply as the first session. Please state your name and address. Be mindful that your comments are being recorded. We have two venues. You'll be able to make comments either in person at a podium or online. Submit comments submitted to an email address that is apparently displayed on our virtual platform. First, we'll allow any comments from members of the public.
Lisa Frisbee, 76 Hickory Road, Wantage. Former graduate, former parent, former staff member. It's really nice to be back here. Currently, I am in private practice. I am the LLC operator of New Hope Counseling Services in Lafayette and Lodge. Okay. Mr. Dunn, I could not thank you more for the more perfect segue to what I have to offer tonight. And I want to let you know, as a former board member, that I am not coming to you with an issue that I think is your fault and you need to fix. I remember sitting at the table going, what is this person going to bring to us? What I'm here to talk to you about in my private practice, I participated in a training about a month and a half ago. It was about the effects of isolation on adolescents. And there were some things that were said in that training that did not come to news to me and will not come to news as news to you. Adolescence is a very difficult time of life. It was for all of us. It is for our kids now. Developmentally, they are just learning. They are just creating the brain pathways to learn how to cope with things. The second thing the training brought up is that technology and social media has really had an impact on that. So we know that as parents, we know that as educators as well. Not a big shock. The thing that came up next to create the perfect storm was the fact that the isolation, the quarantining, the instability of what reality was, had an impact on all of us that we can all understand. We all adapted and adjusted to being isolated. We made it work for us. And now that we're coming out of that, I know that we feel as adults like there are sometimes we'd really rather go back in. That we got this adaptation of, I really would just like to maybe chill at Netflix instead of going to that social engagement or instead of going back into the office from work. I really think I'd rather work from home. I can tell you that most of my clients in my private practice have preferred to stay online. It's just convenient and comfortable. Take that feeling and connect it with an adolescent who is already struggling with who they are and how it feels to engage. Already presented the opportunity that social media and technology provides this place that separates them from in-person engagement and creates this other world and the problems that that can cause. And now we take the impact that for them, their brains were just learning how to connect with people. The learning curve that has been lost in education, apply that to the developmental gains that they were to make in social interactions that they didn't, okay? So now we have the perfect storm. We have these three things happening at once. I was on board with all of this, learning from this presenter, until it came to the bottom line, which was, and we're all screwed. That was not okay with me. The people in this room that know me, you don't present a problem without a solution. And there were some, I felt a little placating. You could do this, you could do this, you could do this. They were very general and broad, and I was not put at ease by them. And I got off of that training and immediately started thinking about, no, we're not going to let our kids just languish that way. There is something we can do about this. I go back to an opportunity that Dr. Ripley offered me a few years ago to go out to Anaheim to a national conference. You know how hard it is to remember something yesterday, much less years ago. I remember being inspired by the National Teacher of the Year. And her platform from an inner city Connecticut experience was the connection, the collaboration, and the contribution that she was able to get from her kids in a community service environment. The multiple benefits that they got. Most importantly, for kids that often took from the system, and not take, but were benefited by low-income housing or reduced and free lunch and those kinds of things. But also the fact that our generation of kids, all the way back to the Industrial Revolution, I could talk about that, but right?
Yeah.
We have evolved into a society where kids would contribute to the family business, would contribute on the farm, would contribute to what needed to be done. We have evolved, first one to admit it, into a society where we give to our kids, and they really have very limited ability to give back or opportunities to give back. So that connected for me that the way to build connection for these kids, not teach them connection, not give them opportunities, here's a people search, find the person that plays an instrument, find the person that speaks another language, but actually experience connection with the ability to contribute to a group other than themselves. And I want to be very clear, I'm not talking about the community service that we had years ago that we did away with that was individualized. The kids had to fill out a sheet, they had to get it approved, they had certain hours to graduate. That was a monstrous undertaking that evolved into diminished return, less value.
So with the board's permission, I'd like to allow Ms. Frisbee to continue beyond her 3-minute.
And I will wrap up, I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
just,
I'm talking about classrooms being we have the infrastructure in schools. This is not a school problem, it's a community problem. That's why I'm coming to you and not talking to the administrators. If it was a school issue, I know how to follow that chain of command. This is a community issue, but the schools provide the environment and the infrastructure to address it. And the proposal that I'm suggesting is that classrooms, once a year, each classroom, which would mean that any given student would do 7 or 8 times, and if it's a half-year course, maybe they don't have to do it, or maybe if they want to do it or whatever, that they incorporate into their curriculum something curriculum connected, but student initiated, student driven, student collaborated, student facilitated, okay? So the students come up with the problem. What is an issue that we could tackle? They come up with what are the solutions that we would have access to? What could we contribute that would address this, that would give back to somebody other than us? It could be a language arts class reviewing books and then writing reviews and posting them at the county library. It could be a music class playing music online, or maybe if they have access in person at Barn Hill. It could be something even school related, a science project where they test the water and see if it meets the standards, or they plant something. It could be as little or as big as the teacher is willing to do, that the kids see a vision for. You may have come across, there is a kindergarten that used a grant through Sandy Hook Promise that started a phone line that you call the number and they give you 5 options. If you're feeling lonely, click 1. If you're feeling sad, click 2. If you're feeling discouraged, click 3. And you click it and you hear a kindergartner give you a 2 or 3 sentence encouragement. You are great, you can do it, we love you. Like, it's just something so simple. But that has gone viral. So my suggestion is to, however you would see it being done, to initiate the idea of classrooms doing something once a year that gives the students a chance to collaborate. They could count it as a grade, they could have no grade. It could be big, it could be small, but that they do something cross-curricular, cross-educational, cross-generational. When you do cross-age teaching with kids, and it could be the seniors to the freshmen, it could be the freshmen to the 5th graders, and I did present this to Sussex Wantage, and they're really happy with it, and they're going to start doing it within their schools. It doesn't need transportation, as long as they're doing something for someone else. It addresses the issue of needing connection and needing to contribute. And that's what I'm suggesting. One last thing, I am not looking to add one more thing to teachers' responsibilities. Really, this needs to be student-generated. This needs to be student-facilitated so that they can experience. We're not talking about service learning, we're talking about service experiencing. And that's how we start allowing them and giving them the opportunities to build those networks that have been lost in the pandemic. So I have a handout. Everything I said is sort of in an outline, and then if you're really interested, there's more specifics about the brain chemistry stuff. And if you're really interested, I have the bibliography of where the research comes from. The last thing I will offer you is I am interested in being part of the conversation. I can come in for a committee meeting. I could present to a staff meeting. I'll come into a department and help them, or I can do nothing. And you can decide that it's already taken care of and it's okay. It was my drive and felt responsibility to just share the idea with you. And that's it. Thank you.
Anything, but we will promise to look into it, and thank you for a very effective presentation. And any other comments in person? Now I'm going to ask Mr. Yardley if we have any. Did you have?
Yes.
I'll just add before she comes up that Mrs. Frisbee, it was a great presentation, but you got to bring some more passion.
I don't really feel for these things. That's why I'm here after 8 sessions in a row and no dinner.
This is what retirement looks like.
This is what retirement looks like.
I would like to commend Mrs. Frisbee because we work together and it's terrific. Just to dovetail on that, we like student input, but we also need support, staff support. Because students are kids that need our guidance, and they look to us as guidance, and when they get conflicting answers to situations, that's a problem. So we just want to be stable and be able to add to the students, to be able to say we're there for them, instead of saying, well, so-and-so says this, and you're saying that, and administration is saying this, and I can do this, and I can do that. We need just one set of rules, and yes, everything has to bend, and we're in a pandemic. We're not out of a pandemic. It's gonna go on. We appreciate the students, but I am a mother of twins that are 11 years old. I listen to the comments, but I'm the ultimate decider or if they're going to the movies or if they're gonna climb the tree out at bank or whatnot. Our students want us teachers to be enforced as to be able to say yes, not maybe. And that's what we're looking for. And we love for the students once a year to be able to have the autonomy to say, this is what we need. But they need a force. They need to look at us. They look at us as their parents sometimes. We have kids. I remember when I was a student in high school, I was only one of somebody that was divorced. And my father happened to be principal of Manor High School. All right? And now, divorce, several families here and there, kids living in cars, it's unconscionable. So we need that support with the administration for us to be able to say, yeah, without having to think, oh, am I questioning whatever? But we would like for the students to have input, but they should be guiding all of what's going on in the school. So we just want the support as teachers to be able to support our students and to be consistent. That's all we ask for. Monday to be a Monday, Tuesday to be a Tuesday, Wednesday to be a Wednesday, Thursday to be a Thursday, Friday to be a Friday.
Don't work my education then,
That's
because
the
there is
3
nothing consistent.
Yeah, thank you. But for us, what we have.
Any other public comments in the room? Now I'm going to ask Mr. Yardley if we've received any email to our virtual platform. We're not having any luck there. I believe we've probably given enough time to have comments submitted virtually, so I'm going to ask for a motion to close the second public comment section.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Second public comments section closed. Non-committee board member reports or comments.
Pantry. Food pantry, right? Oh, so you can either bring food into the school for the food pantry or through Amazon, correct?
Yes.
So.
And I believe that link was provided to purchase through Amazon, which is great.
Does it deliver direct then?
It does. Comes right here. It usually indicates on the label the donor. So this pie app will often send out a thank you note right away. It's incredibly efficient. It's awesome. And thank you for bringing it up every month and mentioning it, because they were down a bit, and she put out an email and got a huge response, and so it's great.
I'll send you all the link again.
Can we put it on the website somewhere?
I believe it is,
Okay,
but
so what,
we'll make sure.
how long ago did you start with the Amazon?
I think Ms. Pyatt emailed the staff probably about a week ago.
I'm just curious of what the difference is gonna be because of sitting on your sofa and doing it.
Right.
They need to get out and connect with them.
No, I'm talking
Not when
about,
it comes to this, no.
I'm talking about the older folks that wanna stay home instead of the sofa, right? So, no, I think it's a great idea. Yep.
I had a couple of small updates. I just wanted to mention that I attended the New Jersey School Board's Delegate Assembly on May 14th. It's my first attendance at such an event. They did not have it in person the last 2 years, so this was the first in-person Delegate Assembly apparently since COVID. Not a lot to report because there were not many resolutions submitted by the membership. Very formal, officious assembly. And I may have mentioned earlier that there's a new version of Robert's Rules of Order. They followed it. So, again, it just an attended. I don't have much to bring back that other than, High Point is now listed as voting on a few things at the New Jersey School Board Delegate Assembly. I believe there's a Sussex County School Boards Association meeting coming up June 8th, and there may
Same
be.
night as our Hall of Fame.
Yes.
I was actually going to speak at that.
So you are not?
I cannot,
Okay, I can't
because
say.
I'm not missing that. I can't miss that.
No, I understand, so, all right, we'll double do,
Sorry.
okay. Well, there may be another speaker then, just don't know who. If you've never been, it's not a bad meeting, to get to know other members of school boards in the county and, talk about good things and commiserate about state aid cuts. And I believe this one is June 8th, Wednesday night at the Newton Country Club.
I will update you, should they reschedule that,
If they,
which I anticipate they will.
oh, maybe they will
It was
reschedule.
anticipated to be a precursor of a presentation at school boards, so we'll see.
Okay, maybe postpone, which makes sense too. You know, if they were able to do that. So then the last point was, those considering attendance at, workshop 2022 in October. I believe we've already, submitted, for our attendees. So anybody that's interested,
I just didn't do rooms or anything.
we'll
Then you'll
have
have
to
to see
discuss that with Fran.
actually go.
So just email Fran if we want to go?
Yes.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be the entire time. I believe it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. School boards has approved 2 nights of lodging. I believe.
When is it, Wayne?
October 20.
2 or 3?
like that.
Oh, sorry.
Towards the end.
It was
Yeah.
I think there would have
Or
to
the
be 3, but I could be
It's
wrong.
3 days.
It's
Next
It's
month.
4 days, so I
It's in the
believe it's only
20s.
2 nights, 2 evenings now. I'm not positive. But all right, we can check on that. But it is October 24th, 25th, 26th, or
Yeah, it's in the
25th, 26th, 27th, that week.
Yeah.
And again, this is the first time in person in the last 3 years.
I've never
The
been.
last one was 2019, and it's a really incredible networking opportunity. So, that's all I had for non-committee board member reports. Other business, for purposes of public disclosure and in accordance with the Open Public Records Act, High Point Board of Office has received and responded to the following open requests over the past month, and that is as listed. So that's just information. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting for the evening.
Motion.
In a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Good.
Where,